Hey, I'm back. So, I want to talk about state today, and forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty, but I'll do as best as I can. State is something, or was something, that confused me when I was first learning React and when I was going through all the tutorials. So, I thought since I come from the education field, I could sort of share my perspective and it might help others that are also trying to learn these basic React concepts. So, let's get right into it. I'm going to create a very simple component. I'm going to do everything from scratch so that you can see kind of how to experiment with state if you'd like to after this video as well. So the challenge or the task is going to be very simple. I'm going to have a little input box here. The user is going to type their name, and then their name is going to be displayed at the bottom of the screen. I know it's nothing impressive, but the focus is just to kind of get the basics of state in this video. So I have everything cleared out. I cleared out all the test files, the manifest, and all that stuff from my React project. And it's just a real simple, we got the app.js, we got the index files, the styling, and then I have the components. So I'm going to walk you through the creation of the component and then importing it into the app so that we can see it on our local host, and then we'll complete the problem. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into my components. I'm going to create a new file. I'll just name it simple state.jsx. Because it's JSX, just always start with the capital if you're only familiar with doing vanilla JavaScript stuff. Also too, if you're coming to this video without any prior JavaScript knowledge, I would advise you to maybe go over the basics, variables, functions, loops, learn the built-in methods, JavaScript, kind of, maybe run a few courses, maybe do some Code Wars challenges, and then come back to this one. But yeah, if you're here and you have some prior knowledge of JavaScript, you should be all right. So I got my simple state component. I'm going to just do RAFCE. That's going to create the basic component function for us. And then now that I got that, I can call that in our app right here. So I'm going to call simple state. And then if I hit tab and autocomplete that, it's going to import it automatically. It's self-closing, so I do the little, / and then I close it with bracket or the arrow, and then I'll hit save. And so you see simple state pops up for me. So cool. We have the simple state component now in our main app, and it's displaying on the screen, so we're all good. I'm going to close this. I'm just going to open up my simple state. Okay, so what I mentioned earlier is we need an input box, and then we need a little section where it's going to display whatever the user types. So let's do the sort of simple portion first. We need a div that's going to encase our input box and our display box where we display what we're typing in the input. So if you're returning multiple things in a React component in JSX, make sure you return, and then you get these little parentheses right here. We'll hit enter. I will just type div, and then we're going to just add the stuff that is going to be returning and showing on the screen right now, but there's going to be no functionality. So I'll just do an H1. I'll say enter your name. Cool, got the H1. below that, I'm going to do the input box, and notice how we got the autocomplete. So I'm hitting tab to just finish those out. Every time I hit save, also you'll see these little chunks appear on the page. So we got the H1, we got the input, and I'm just going to enter down twice so you can see the little display box. So I'm just going to make it an H2. And this is where I'm going to have our input dynamically display, but there's nothing displaying there in the moment. So I'll just maybe put a little placeholder there, test. Okay. So let's move this down a little bit. So that's the section where our content is going to be returning and then displaying on the screen. Now it's time for the functionality. And then this is when we get into state. So to start writing state, you start with the const variable. And state takes two things. It takes like the state itself, and then I don't know what you would call it, maybe like I guess it takes two parameters. It takes the state itself, and then it takes the function that we're sort of using to change the state. An easy way to think about state is it's just like a variable that is, maybe changing or altering. So you could use it for anything. You could use it for making like a to-do list. The users could type their information here and hit enter, and it would add it to a to-do list. You can change backgrounds of the page. You can sort of change users if you want a certain amount of users displayed depending on their credentials or whatever. You can use it for anything. It's like just think of it like your main variable in React. You're going to be using it for all your variables. So for state in this example, we're going to be using it for a name right here. And you know what? Let's put a little placeholder in the text box right here. And let's make this larger too. So it's just going to say your name. Oh my gosh. Right. Whoa, okay. Yeah, so your name, just a little placeholder, and then you can type your stuff. And obviously nothing is being tracked at the moment, nor is it being displayed. So it's kind of useless at the moment. All right, so back to state. So it takes two things. It takes the state, and then it takes the function or whatever that's changing the name state, because we want the name state to change every single time that the user is inputting their name. So let's do name state and set name state. And then we're going to set this equal to useState and see how it imports right in the top up there. So that's like it's a hook from React, and it's built into React. So it knows that I'm going to be calling upon useState to be changing the this user's name. It's gonna keep track of the user's name every time they change it, pretty much. So we do have to set useState to something. We can just initialize it. We can just set it to a empty string at the moment, and then I'm going to hit save. So there's nothing, and these are underlined because they're initialized here, but they are not being put in use. So if I type in anything, nothing's happening because we're not making use of the name state. We're literally just declaring our variables right here. So let's make use of it. So a lot of these basic React, or just all the time in React, you're going to see state, and then you're going to see the function which handles the changing of state, in another portion of the component. So how I'm going to declare that, same way, I'm going to just declare the function as a variable. So we will say const handle name change. It's going to be an arrow function. And then we're going to have our functionality in these curly braces right here. Okay, so I guess what we should note is that this function right here is going to be run when this input is put to use. So to call this function, to make it actually start working, is we need to put it in a place where it's going to be put to use. And the place that it's going to be put to use is this input right here. So that's where we're going to use our on change. So we're gonna declare this little on change right here, and it's just gonna look for, every time something is changing, run this function right here, this handle name change. So on change, we'll set it equal to handle name change. Cool. All right, we'll save that. All good. Still nothing happening. I'm just connecting this function to this little input field right here. Okay. So there's going to be two things. Handle name change. We need to pass an argument to it because it's going to be using what the user inputs, if that makes sense. So it's going to take what we're typing in here, and it's going to set our state to what is being typed in here. So we need to declare that we're going to pass something to the function in order for it to take that information and pass it to state. So it might not make sense right off the bat if you're sort of new to this, but in time it will end up making a lot more sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type event, and you could type anything in here really. It could be name, it could be words, but general conventions, or you'll see event usually. So we're going to tell our function, hey, look for an event. Okay, so one thing you'll have to do, and I'm probably not the best at explaining this portion because I'm not an expert in terms of React under the hood by any means. But one thing you'll have to do is, and it'll sometimes cause you a lot of issues if you don't do this, you need to declare a new variable to recognize what is being typed in this little section right here. So let me just kind of show you how that looks. I'm going to go const, and we'll just say input value equal to, all right, now event.target.value is the naming convention. And basically what this is doing is we're looking, it's a way to tell React to look at what the user is inputting into this little field right here. So the event.target.value, all that really is just this. It's whatever I type in here. That's what event.target.value is. So I'm just declaring a variable and setting it equal to this right here. That little hello. Or it could be my name, or dev, or 123, or whatever. That input value is just looking at whatever the user is putting in here. That's all it's doing. Nothing else at the moment. Okay, so we are finally going to get into state, and it's going to seem a lot more simple. Honestly, it's my example is just sort of to give you the basis of state. I know there's no functionality in this. It's just to kind of show you how state links up with the functionality in React and how you can sort of start manipulating state. So what we'll do now is we're going to use our set name state, and that's going to be used to set our name state to whatever is typed in this little box right here, so that we can have it can constantly look at what the user is typing, and it can change the state, that state variable, to whatever the user is typing. So we're going to go set name state, and we will set it to, we're going to set it to this input value, because remember, this is what is looking at what the user is typing. Input value is equal to event.target.value, which is just whatever's in here. So we're going to set name state to input value. Cool. And we need to use our state, right? Because I put this test right here. So let's get rid of the state. Or sorry, let's get rid of this H2 right here, and we're going to replace it with state. As you can see, the little yellow squiggly underline has now disappeared from this because we are now using this set name state, and we're setting the name state to whatever is put in this little box right here. And if we want to show this actual what state is now, the name state, all you have to do, we're using like JavaScript functionality in this this little JSX right here. So whenever you're using that, whenever you're using something that is dynamically being changed or altered, make sure that you put it in between these little curly braces right here. And in between those curly braces, we'll just put name state. And we'll hit save. And you know what? We could do, let's change these tags for a minute. Go to P, and then we'll just say H2, your name is. All right, cool. So yeah, so your name, and then our name state is going to display very small beneath our your name is. So Doug, D-O-U-G. And it's going to look at whatever the user's typing, and it's going to set that name state value to our input value, which is this right here. And it's going to change, by setting that name state value, we are then changing the state, and that state is being displayed down here. So there is this is our state right here. The name state, at least. It is just whatever we type in here. So I think I'm going to call it for that. It's probably a bit long in terms of video recording for a state video, a really simple one. But hopefully that illuminates the issue a little bit if you're having some trouble. It took me a long time to kind of finally understand state. So yeah, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments, and then hopefully I can answer. And if you have any sort of suggestions for future videos, let me know. But yeah, I think that's all for today, and thanks. See ya.